does God, in fact, influence the decision you make in your role now, that you made as a lawmaker, that you've made in state office?
God definitely influences decisions I make every day, and especially so in this office.
How?
Well, I start my day talking to God every morning. I start by reading Scripture in prayer, asking His favor, His guidance. And I think that's reflective of our entire country. The founding of this country was founded by Christian men and on Christian principles. And we've had the favor of God now for over 200 years.
What do you say? Obviously, when I've been interviewing House members, you were a former House member, 150 people in there, different faiths, different definitions of God. What do you say to somebody who reaches a different conclusion than you based on their definition of God?
Well, I just haven't had a lot of those conversations. But I know I'm in this position because it's God's will that I be here. I really believe that. I really, just by looking at the odds, it would be very impractical of me being here. Even winning my first House seat, I ran against an incumbent Democrat, and the Republican hadn't held that seat since Reconstruction, and it was in a Democratic district, yet we prevailed. I was very late getting into the race for Agriculture Commissioner. There was already 4 people in the race. We had a tough time raising money, probably raised less money than the other candidates. A couple candidates spent like over $6 a vote, and I spent 18 cents. So God opened doors, opened friendships, opened relationships that made it possible for me to hold this office. And there's no doubt in my mind that that's why I'm here.
We were speaking about the weather just a moment ago. I used to work in western Kansas, and ag stories were it. I mean, God has to play into just kind of at the mercy of God, if you will, when it comes to the weather and farming and producing.
Well, when I ran during the campaign, I said, we were going through a 4-year drought. And I always told everybody, I said, God will bless us with some rain someday, and the drought will be over. I think that started the day I was sworn in, so I'd like to take full credit for that. Mm-hmm. But of course I'm joking. We've had some devastating rains. The rains have been good in many ways. They've filled up our lakes and our ponds, and it's nourishing our land, and the grass is growing and green. But we do have a lot of Texans that are hurting right now. We have over 70 counties that the governor has declared disaster areas, and we're dealing with that. Most of those are rural counties. Of course, we have here at the Texas Department of Agriculture have oversight over those rural counties and getting them disaster relief, and we do that through community development block grants to the counties and cities for their infrastructure needs.
Looking on your website and then doing some research, I was here in the 82nd, but I wasn't covering it exclusively. I saw one of the bills you had, and again on your campaign website for this position, was talking about being a pro-life leader. Mm-hmm. How does that factor into your role here as the Ag Commissioner?
Well, I think some people argue that being pro-life has nothing to do with being Ag Commissioner, but I think it has everything to do about it. It defines your character and who you are and what your beliefs are. The bill you're referring to, I think, in the 82nd legislature was a bill I call was authored and passed with the help of Dan Patrick, called the sonogram bill, which is credited with saving about 15,000 babies each year in this state. So that, to me, that was a high accomplishment. That was had divine guidance in doing that, because it wasn't easy. That was the 4th session that I think that bill had been tried. It failed the 3 previous sessions. So we're very, very proud of that and glad to be a part of that movement. But where you stand on the life issue, I think tells about your character, tells you where your heart is, and I think that's important, especially for voters to know where you stand on those type of issues.
This session was a big one focused on guns, and in the debates we heard a lot the phrase that it's a God-given right. When it comes to open carry, campus carry, or just guns in general, Are you in line with that school of thought?
Well, I don't know that it's a God-given right, but I would agree that it's a constitutional right. It's guaranteed. We have the right to bear arms. So I was glad to see the legislature step up and pass campus carry and open carry, and I think that'll be good for Texas. We're a very strong, strong, independent state. We love our freedoms here, and along with those freedoms come our Second Amendment rights.
Another topic that we heard about a lot where God was mentioned was just with education. And you said you were at a preschool today, and we heard, I believe it was Lieutenant Governor Patrick's advisory council liken it to a godless environment. I mean, again, what are your thoughts on pre-K and just the state being involved with making sure 3- and 4-year-olds have that experience?
Well, first of all, that responsibility lies with the parents and the guardians to instill that at an early age. We certainly have taken God out of the school. I think that's a mistake. I think the history shows that, and the facts show that. Since we've taken prayer out of our schools, our founding fathers never meant for God to be out of government. They just meant for government to be out of the church, and I think we get that skewed. We've all heard the phrase separation of church and state. Sometimes you hear something often enough, you begin to believe it. However, that statement is not found anywhere in any of our founding documents. It's just simply not true. It's just been said over and over and over again. People think it's the law of the land, that it's in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, and it's not. What our founding fathers built this country on, they came here seeking a place where they could worship freely without government intervention. It was the Quakers and the Shakers and the Pilgrims and the Separatists. They came here seeking God. And because of that, I think that's why America has been so blessed all these years. We're the world's superpower. And I think it's because we were grounded as a Christian nation.
You have a thing here, pray it's not illegal yet.
Right.
You mentioned schools, and what do you think is the state of our country right now when it comes to faith?
Well, I certainly think prayer works. I think we can do more of it. There's nothing wrong asking for God's divine intervention in whatever task you're taking on. We've done something, or I've done something rather bold, I guess, for a state elected official. We're making a position of chaplain here at the Texas Department of Agriculture. When the disaster struck last Tuesday, I had a chaplain come in. We had prayer service here in the building, in a state of building. It was not mandatory, but anyone that wanted to come and pray and join in, and we made that available to our remote employees that are not here in the building, that are scattered across the state. And we had very good participation. And I don't mind being a leader that relies on God for guidance.
And so that'll be a state employee, the chaplain?
It'll be a volunteer position. The people of Texas will not pay his salary. He'll simply be here on a love offering from the employees.
Commissioner, anything else to add that I didn't hit on when it comes to your faith and how it's influenced you in your roles through the years?
It's just part of me. I was very fortunate in that I grew up in a Christian home. I think it would have been a lot tougher if I had not had loving parents that raised me in the church and in God's Word. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. And I want to share that same experience with my 2 sons, my grandchildren. My entire family's saved. I pray for my grandchildren when they become of age that they will be too.
Speaking of your grandchildren, another topic that we heard of was just talking, and a lot of the lawmakers have little ones and whatnot, but talking when the kids get of age or a certain age, and whether or not abstinence education is best or other pieces of education. Do you have any thoughts on when your grandchildren grow up, what you would like them to hear in the schools?
Well, we hope I think we have a good public school system. Let me just defend them. My wife and I have both been involved in the public school system in this state. She's just retiring as a superintendent. So they do an excellent job for the most part. I do support school choice. Matter of fact, my wife was superintendent of charter schools. She founded 2 at-risk charter schools, dropout recovery schools. So I'm very proud of her for doing that. So.